Good morning, pilots. I had a friend of mine asked how I go about putting the sheath over a line's loop. This example here is a sheath line, and he specifically wants to know on an unsheathed line. For a sheath line, obviously you have to have the sheath a little bit bigger than the line itself, but even a tad even more so that it'll, you can milk it on. The key is to have the ends melted first without them being stuck together. That's the trick. And so let me go over that with you all. So here's the unsheathed line like he was talking about that he would like to see how, and this is the sheath line that I'm going to go take that sheath and cut a piece to put over this. So it'll be over just a loop like this when we're finished. And so some tools you're going to need to make this process a lot easier. One is a thread burner. Here's one from sailrite.com, and it uses batteries and it uses them rather quickly. And when it's first charged up, or the batteries are newer, it burns really fast. And then as the batteries deplete, it slows down its burning speed. So you have to accommodate and get used to that. I kind of use this for melting the ends, and so they taper off because it has so much power. And then I reserve thread burning for actually something like this. This here is rechargeable, and whether it's fully charged or almost out of charge, it burns at the same pace, and that's really nice. And that's what we're going to use here to melt the ends of this, and you'll see that in a minute. You're going to need a couple tweezers, tweezers that lock and can be released, just the regular tweezers. A splicing tool, I use guitar string, different sizes of guitar string, and a marker, and of course a ruler. So let's get right down into it. So we're going to go ahead and measure off our line. We're going to have it's going to be, let's say, 130 millimeters. And place a mark, the center point, and then I'm going to bend that mark. This is going to be a little bit time consuming, so if you're not you want to learn something real quick, this is not the video. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark it at 35. 30 is my typical, but when I put a sheath over something, I give it 5 more millimeters. Okay, so there she be. And it's going to be between those two marks is where we're going to put the sheath. So that distance there is it's about 73 on this thing. So I'm going to cut my sheath about that. So I'm going to go a little less. I'm going to go, it's 73. I'm going to probably go 70. So I'll cut that sheath at 70. And now the trick here is you want to use line that is, you got to have a real sharp scissors, ones that are for cutting Dyneema. Otherwise, you won't be able to cut this stuff, or aramid. And so when you get a sheath line that you're going to use for this, you want to make sure it's sheath aramid, and I'll show you why in a second here. And so I want these ends melted first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to milk it back a little bit. And I have aramid here. So when I melt this with this thread burner, it's not going to burn the core, because aramid has a much higher heat ignition temperature than the polyester. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to rest it right against the aramid, right at the edge, and I'm going to heat it up for 5 seconds in one spot, rotate, 5 seconds in that spot, rotate, 5 seconds in that spot, until I get the full circumference. And then I'm going to take it at the other end and I'm going to milk it back the other way on the other end, and actually pull it a little further so that whatever's melted to that aramid will break loose. It'll be just minute amount. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. I'm going to go ahead, 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there, 5 seconds here. And that 5-second pace is just ideal with this specific thread burner. Here's the brand name. You can get them, these in different colors. But if it looks like this on Amazon, you've got the trick, the proper item. There's the rechargeable port. Okay, and so once you've done that, then you can pull the core out. And then once you pull the core out, with the ends just slight, I mean, they're just barely melted, but enough so they won't branch out and fray. And so I want to save this piece for one I'm going to use. I'm going to run into the room and get another piece of this to show you how I splice it. So hold on just a sec. Line material is expensive, so you don't want to waste stuff. So this is going to be used for another line. And so what I'm going to do now is splice this piece into it. So you get the proper size guitar string. And of course this is not melted, so it may fray a little bit. But just for time expediency, you know, I didn't want to go through all the steps because you'd be bored to death and want to leave. And so get this thing open like this. And you want to cut these at a 30-degree angle or more to 60. And that way when you do the bend back, before you splice it through, that the bulk of it, the regular thickness is on this side of the wire, and the part that you bend back that goes through is the thin part of the wire that's been tapered. And that way the line is not much bigger diameter than it typically is, and that way splicing through the sheath will be much easier. And then you want to crease it really good. And then you bring it up to it, smush it up, roll it, until it goes over it like that, and then just keep milking it along, just until it goes all the way through. Now, if you pull it, it'll be like Chinese handcuffs. So you got to give it some. There we go, to get over the bulk of it. Then you pull this out like that, and there you be. You have what you're looking for. Didn't fray too bad, without it not being melted. But it depends on the type of sheath. Some will fray up more than others, and it's just a braid of it. I'm finding that for the sheath line that I use to cover unsheathed line is from TSL. Lyros TSL series lines seem to work better than most of the other sheath ones. They fray less. And now I'll find the center between my two marks, which is right there. Of course, the marks are spread further apart because this is just a short piece. But let's say the dot is there and there, well, like that. And then what I'm going to do now is splice these together. And then I want to make it so that when I splice them, that the two dots that I was talking about for the loop, which I have it, you know, this one's obviously smaller, you know, that these will meet together right at the apex there, or the crutch, or whatever you call it, where they join together. And then I'm just going to splice this together. I'm going to splice it together the same way. I'm going to go further down than the tail. The tail's there. And for the sake of speed, I'm going to go ahead and make this even. Now let me shorten this. I'll do it shorter so you can do it quicker than it would otherwise. And so you want to start your insert of your splicing tool further along, so when it comes out, you'll see in a second why that's important. My allergies kicking in the morning, so bear with my throat here. So you get it into the core, and you just milk it along. If it punches through the other side, back it up. And if you give it some counter pressure, it helps accordion it so it gets bulkier, so it goes through much easier. Dang allergies. And then you just keep going until you hit the black mark. That's going to be the start of your. So let's. Here's the black mark. So we're going to come through that black mark, like so, and then we're going to get the tail of the line. Let's stick it through there, like so. Bring it to the end, bend it back, crease it, And they do the same thing that we did with the sheath, is we're just going to milk over that. Roll it a little bit so it brings it inside. And then because this, I inserted this past the point where these two meet, that when I milk it afterwards, it's going to take it up inside. You'll see that in a sec. So now that I got this outside, this is where the locking tweezers come into play. Locks it there so I don't lose that. And then I'm going to go over here and play with this. You know, whatever size you want the loop. You want bigger or smaller. In this case, we want it smaller. We want it to the point to where we've made this such that, you know, these two come together. This is just a smaller example, so I'm going to have to pull this a little further. Take this up inside so they meet just like that. You know, in reality, this would be a bigger loop. I want them at least 30 millimeters, so you can make your melling loops for trim tuning. Even a little bit bigger, maybe 35 in this case. And so that's how you do that. And then once you get that like so, you release your lock. You're going to pinch it here, and then you're going to milk this down, and that'll disappear inside. And I didn't go far enough, so it's not gonna go inside, but I would have had to start a little further back before I inserted my tool. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about here. And you know, I could also do this. I can take this, milk it back, and pull this out a hair, and then cut it. Like so, and then now I can milk it right over it, and it's gone. So if you do not get it far enough, there's a way to resolve that. But anytime you cut these ends, you want to make sure they're at an angle so that it tapers off. Because if it's a abrupt change, that's where your line's going to break when it's under stress. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew this. I'm going to go 15 millimeters in, and then I go 30 millimeters and make a mark. So at 15 and 45 I make a mark, so I end up sewing a straight stitch for 30 millimeters, which stays in, which is where the core, the line is inside its core, and then the line, there'll be some of it past that and some of it before it, of course. And that's the finished product. And then we use this one to melt the ends of the thread, so they're mushroom head. And if you use this one, it'll burn too quick, and it's just more complicated. So this is the one for a good paste for burning, and this one will be for sheet lines when I melt the ends to taper them. Here I'll go ahead and sew it past the double part a little bit, but then it'll be an abrupt change, as you can see here. And then you use this one, and of course my batteries just popped out. I'll show you real quick here. I'll melt that puppy like that, and then I'll just smush it together. And then it's more tapered. And it's going to be sewed already past that, so it'll look really streamlined. But anyhow, that gives you the idea on how to go about splicing these to get these inside and everything. So I thought I'd show you that. Hope you have a good day.